you find yourself in a narrow corridor deep within the Forbidden City in 1720. The walls are painted imperial yellow, and the air carries a mix of fear and jasmine incense. Your silk slippers are silent on the polished stone as you follow an elderly eunuch, his shadow flickering in the candlelight. At just 15, you've been chosen as one of the emperor's newest concubines. The eunuch suddenly stops and turns to you, his eyes a mix of pity and cold efficiency. "Listen carefully, child," he whispers, barely audible over the distant trickle of water from ornamental fountains. "What I am about to tell you will determine whether you live or die here. These are not just customs or traditions. They are the invisible chains binding every woman who enters the Son of Heaven's bedchamber. Your heart pounds as you realize that everything you believed about imperial luxury and honor was a beautiful lie. The real rules of the harem are about to be revealed, stranger and more terrifying than you imagined. Before we dive into these forgotten stories of survival and suffering, if you enjoy uncovering history's hidden truths, consider hitting that like button and subscribing for more content like this. And please, comment below to share where you're listening from. It's incredible that we explore these ancient stories together from different parts of the world, connected through our shared curiosity about the past. The first rule they teach you is fundamental. Never, under any circumstances, turn your back to the emperor. This seems simple until you understand what it truly means. When the Son of Heaven enters his chambers, you must always face him, even while undressing, moving about the room, or performing the most intimate acts. The women before you have mastered an almost supernatural ability to move sideways, pivoting and gliding like dancers, never letting their spine face the man who holds their fate. But why? The answer lies in the paranoia of absolute power. An emperor ruling over 300 million knows that death can come from anywhere, even from a beautiful woman's soft hands. A concealed needle, a hidden blade, poison under the fingernails, these are the weapons haunting the most powerful man's dreams. Turning your back represents a moment of vulnerability where anything could be hidden or drawn. You learn this lesson by watching Mei Lin, a concubine who has survived 3 years in the harem. She moves through the emperor's chambers like water, never abrupt, never showing her back. When she needs to reach for something behind her, she turns in a graceful arc, her eyes never leaving the emperor's face. When she removes her robes, she does so with a fluid motion that seems choreographed, each garment falling away while she remains partially bowed. The second rule is even more unsettling. You must never speak unless spoken to, and when you do, you must refer to yourself in the third person. You are not I. You are this unworthy slave, or this lowly concubine. Your individual identity, your sense of self, must vanish the moment you enter his presence. The emperor does not engage with people. He interacts with vessels, objects existing solely for his pleasure. This linguistic erasure goes beyond mere protocol. It rewires your brain, forcing you to see yourself as less than human. Within months, many concubines find they cannot think of themselves as I, even when alone. They become fragmented beings, their thoughts colonized by the grammar of submission. The third rule involves your eyes, and is perhaps the most psychologically devastating. You must never look directly into the emperor's eyes during intimacy. Your gaze must fix on a point just below his chin, creating the illusion of submission while avoiding genuine eye contact. But this is not about respect. It prevents the emperor from seeing your soul, and more importantly, keeps you from seeing his. Eye contact creates intimacy, and intimacy leads to complications. The emperor must use your body without confronting your humanity. If he sees fear, pain or longing in your eyes, he might hesitate. If he sees intelligence in your gaze, he might wonder what you are thinking or planning. And if you see into his eyes, you might realize the Son of Heaven is just a man, lonely and afraid, trying to prove his divinity through the conquest of women. The most twisted aspect of this rule is the consequence of violating it. If you accidentally meet his gaze, you must immediately prostrate yourself and beg forgiveness, not for disrespect, but for presuming equality. The punishment for repeated violations is not death, but something worse. You are sent to serve in the eunuch's quarters, spending the rest of your life as a reminder to other women of the consequences of forgetting your place. The fourth rule governs the most intimate moments. During the act itself, you must remain completely silent, unless the emperor specifically commands you to make noise. This is not about discretion or modesty. It is about control. Your pleasure, your pain, your very breath must be regulated by his will. If you cry out spontaneously, you acknowledge an independent physical response, a body existing beyond his control. This is intolerable. Enforcing this rule creates a chilling theater of intimacy. Women learn to hold their breath, bite their tongues until they bleed, and dissociate completely from their bodies to feel nothing. The emperor, meanwhile, becomes addicted to the power of commanding a response. He might spend an entire night trying to break a woman's silence, not through pleasure, but through pain, endurance, and asserting his will over autonomy. Some women succumb to this pressure. They develop a condition palace physicians cannot name, an inability to make any sound at all, even when alone. They become living ghosts, voices stolen by the impossible demands of imperial desire. The fifth rule is about timing, revealing the mechanical nature of imperial sexuality. The emperor's climax must always come last, not out of consideration for his partner's pleasure. Instead, it signifies the restoration of cosmic order. His seed is deemed sacred, a direct connection to the divine mandate of heaven. For a concubine to reach her peak before him suggests that her mortal pleasure could somehow supersede divine will. This creates a nightmarish calculation for the women involved. They must constantly monitor their own responses and read the subtle signs of the emperor's arousal. They become experts in suppression, learning to delay or prevent their climax through sheer willpower. Some develop mental distraction techniques, reciting poems or performing complex calculations while their bodies are used. The sixth rule involves the aftermath, where the true cruelty of the system is apparent. Once the emperor is finished, the concubine must remain in position, usually prostrate, until he permits movement. This can last minutes or hours, depending on his mood. During this time, she cannot clean herself, adjust for comfort, or show any sign of discomfort. The purpose is to reinforce the fundamental inequality of the exchange. The emperor can return to normal, dress, call for refreshments, or summon other concubines, while the woman must remain frozen in vulnerability, her body bearing the evidence of their encounter, until he decides to release her from this final act of submission. The seventh rule concerns pregnancy, revealing the complex intersection of politics and biology in the imperial harem. If a concubine discovers she is pregnant, she must immediately inform the head eunuch, not the emperor. Here's the twist. She must report it even if she's uncertain or merely suspects it. Failing to report a pregnancy results in death, while falsely reporting one leads to a severe beating that leaves permanent scars. This creates constant anxiety over every bodily function. Women become hypervigilant about their cycles, appetite, and energy levels. They develop intricate systems to track and monitor their bodies, turning their physicality into a source of fear rather than strength. The fortunate learn to interpret the signs accurately, while the less fortunate guess wrong and face the consequences on their skin. The most insidious part of this rule concerns confirmed pregnancies. The concubine is immediately isolated and placed under constant surveillance. She's not protected. She's monitored to ensure she doesn't attempt to terminate the pregnancy or harm herself. The potential heir is valuable. The woman carrying it is just a vessel to be kept functional. The 8th rule involves other women and reveals how jealousy and competition were weaponized in the imperial harem. When multiple concubines are summoned to the emperor's chambers, a strict hierarchy of interaction applies. The favored concubine leads, while the others serve as audience, assistants, or competitors in elaborate performances. The psychological impact is profound. Women who might otherwise form alliances or friendships are forced to see each other as threats. They must display desire for the same man while competing for his attention, appearing to enjoy scenarios that reduce them to objects while maintaining individual devotion. The most heartbreaking aspect is the effect on genuine friendships. Women who care for each other must participate in each other's degradation. They witness their friends being used and humiliated, and sometimes become instruments of that humiliation. Bonds that could provide comfort and resistance are systematically corrupted and weaponized. The 9th rule concerns the emperor's moods, highlighting the impossible standard of perfection demanded from the concubines. They must instantly read and respond to his emotional state, adjusting their behavior accordingly. If he's angry, they must be soothing, but not presumptuous. If he's sad, they must be comforting, but not pitying. If he's celebratory, they must be joyful, but not overly enthusiastic. This demands an extraordinary level of emotional intelligence and self-control. The concubines become skilled psychologists, analyzing every micro-expression, posture shift, and change in breathing pattern. They develop an intuitive grasp of power and ego that would make modern diplomats envious. However, this expertise comes at a high cost. They lose the ability to have genuine emotional responses. The 10th rule focuses on memory and is perhaps the most tragic. The concubines must remember every detail of their interactions with the emperor, what was said, done, what pleased or disappointed him. Yet they must forget these encounters as soon as they leave his chambers, maintaining perfect recall in his presence, but perfect amnesia outside of it. This creates a split consciousness that many find impossible to sustain. They develop complex mental filing systems to compartmentalize their experiences, accessing them when needed and suppressing them when necessary. Some succeed in this psychological balancing act, while others break, developing conditions we might now recognize as dissociative disorders. The 11th rule deals with the seasonal nature of imperial desire. The emperor's sexual appetite follows the agricultural calendar, with different months and festivals requiring distinct performances. During harvest celebrations, concubines must embody fertility and abundance. During the winter solstice, they represent the return of light and warmth. In times of war, they channel martial energy and strength. This constant reinvention requires them to become living representations of abstract concepts rather than individuals. They must study not only the emperor's preferences, but also the cosmic and political significance of different seasons. They become actresses in a grand theatrical production, where the script is always changing and the stakes are high. The 12th rule involves the presence of witnesses, revealing the voyeuristic nature of imperial power. Certain encounters must be observed by eunuchs or senior concubines, not for the emperor's pleasure, but to ensure rules are followed. These witnesses must report any violations or signs of genuine emotion, ensuring the concubine views the encounter as a sacred duty. This creates a terrifying system of sexual surveillance. The women never know when they're being watched or who might report on their performance. they must maintain the facade of perfect submission, even when they believe they're unobserved, because the consequences of being caught in a moment of authenticity are severe. The 13th rule addresses gifts and rewards, highlighting the psychological manipulation central to the harem system. The emperor occasionally gives his concubines gifts, like jewelry, silk, and delicacies. However, these gifts come with hidden obligations. Accepting a gift means incurring a debt that can never be repaid. The concubine must show gratitude not just for the gift, but for the honor of being chosen to receive it. More insidiously, these gifts create hierarchies and jealousy among the women. A concubine who receives a valuable present becomes a target of resentment. Refusing a gift is seen as an insult to the emperor's generosity. The women are trapped in a system where every kindness becomes a weapon, and every reward feels like a punishment. The 14th rule involves the concubines' families, revealing the harem's extensive control. The women's relatives are essentially held hostage to ensure their compliance. The threat is not just against their lives, but their honor, social standing, and their ability to marry and have children. A concubine who displeases the emperor risks not only her own death, but also the ruin of everyone she loves. This creates a psychological burden extending beyond the Forbidden City. Concubines carry the weight of multiple generations. They must perform not just for their own survival, but for their entire family's survival. The system ensures that even in their most private moments, they are never truly alone. The faces of their parents, siblings, and future nieces and nephews always linger. The 15th rule concerns aging and is perhaps the most inevitably tragic. As concubines age, they must maintain their appeal without appearing to try too hard. They must age gracefully but not noticeably, accept their diminishing status while still competing for the emperor's attention, and mentor younger concubines, knowing these same women will eventually replace them. Beauty rituals become increasingly desperate and dangerous. Women use lead-based cosmetics that poison their skin and undergo painful procedures to maintain a youthful appearance. They develop eating disorders and exercise compulsions in their attempt to halt time. The lucky ones die young before facing the slow decline of their value in the emperor's eyes. The 16th rule involves death, leading us to the darkest aspect of the harem system. When an emperor dies, his concubines face a choice that isn't really a choice. They can volunteer to be buried with him, ensuring their honor and their family's security, or they can live on as widows, forever marked by their association with a dead ruler, never able to remarry or have children. The preparation for this final rule begins as soon as a concubine enters the harem. She must develop a relationship with death, seeing it not as an end, but as a fulfillment of duty. She writes letters to her family explaining her choice, composes poetry about her devotion, and even participates in her own mythology while preparing for her own destruction. The 17th rule is about resistance, showcasing the incredible strength and ingenuity of the women who survived this system. Despite efforts to break them, they found ways to maintain their humanity, connections with each other, and sense of self. They developed secret languages, coded conversations, and hidden rituals to remember their true identities beneath the roles they were forced to play. Some resistance was subtle, like a glance held too long, a song hummed slightly off-key, or arranging flowers to spell messages only other concubines could read. Other acts were more dramatic, like elaborate suicide plots, escape attempts, and secret pregnancies hidden from palace authorities. These women knew the consequences, but risked everything for moments of authentic choice. The 18th rule concerns love, the most complex and heartbreaking of all. Concubines are forbidden from feeling genuine affection for the emperor, yet also forbidden from not feeling it. They must simulate love so convincingly that it becomes indistinguishable from reality, while maintaining enough emotional distance to withstand inevitable rejection and replacement. This creates a psychological tightrope few can walk successfully. Some fall into genuine love and are destroyed by it, while others detach emotionally to the point of feeling nothing. Rare women who balance simulation with protection often pay for this skill with their sanity, becoming such accomplished performers that they lose track of their own emotions. The 19th rule involves the emperor's death, revealing the ultimate disposability of concubines' lives. When the emperor dies, these women become dangerous reminders of the previous regime. They know too much and represent too much of the old order. The new emperor must either eliminate them or neutralize their influence. The lucky ones are sent to remote temples to live as Buddhist nuns, while the unlucky ones simply disappear, their fates unrecorded. The truly unfortunate are kept alive, but relegated to the lowest palace hierarchy levels, serving as warnings to new concubines about the temporary nature of imperial favor. The 20th and final rule focuses on forgetting, bringing us full circle to the start of our story. The women who survive the harem must learn to forget all they have experienced, everything they have seen, and all they were forced to do. They must become blank slates, ready for new purposes and identities. But forgetting doesn't mean erasing. The memories stay buried deep in the body and unconscious mind. They emerge in nightmares, sudden panic, and an inability to trust, love, or believe in their own worth. These women carry invisible scars for life, reminders of a system that valued beauty over humanity. Standing now in the same corridor where we began, older and wiser, you understand that the strange bedroom rules of the Imperial Harem were about power, not sex. They were about reducing humans to objects, turning love into performance, and making survival dependent on surrendering oneself completely. The eunuch who first told you these rules is long gone, buried in an unmarked grave like many others who served the Forbidden City. The emperor you knew has been replaced by his son, and his son in an endless cycle of power and submission. Yet, the rules continue, passed down as a secret language from one generation of women to the next. You survived by forgetting how to be human and learning to be a shadow. You mastered the art of appearing to exist while actually vanishing. You became an expert in performing desire, simulating submission, and navigating a world where a single mistake can mean death. Now, as you prepare to whisper these rules to another frightened 15-year-old girl, you realize you've become the system you once feared. You're the link connecting the past to the future, the keeper of knowledge that should have died with the last emperor. You're the reason these strange bedroom rules persist, despite the rise and fall of dynasties. The girl before you has the same wide eyes you once had, the same hopeful belief in entering a world of luxury and honor. You know better now. You know she's entering a world where the strangest rule is that to survive, she must forget she was ever human. In the flickering candlelight, you begin to speak, your voice carrying the weight of centuries. Your words weave another invisible chain in the endless cycle of power and submission, defining the Imperial Harem. And somewhere in the distance, you hear the sound of water trickling from ornamental fountains, the same sound that welcomed you to this place so many years ago. The same sound that will greet countless other girls in the years to come. The rules stay the same, only the faces change.